Hello and welcome. It is 9:30. It is the 14th day of August 2021. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. It is day 14. Day 14 of RPG A Day 2021, this yearly project that has been going on for the past 9 years, created for us by autocratic.com, where we post questions and more recently prompts and then try and apply those prompts to some aspect of our role-playing hobby. Today's prompt is safety. Safety. And there's obviously no question in my mind what they wanted to address with that prompt. Safety, being safe, has been one of the hugest issues over the past year and a half that is causing such a great wave of controversy in regards to our hobby. Implementing safety rules, implementing the so-called X card, creating checklists that DMs and players have to go over to make sure that there's nothing that's going to happen in the game that might trigger somebody to feel unsafe or some psychological issue. This has been a huge controversy. I guess it's sort of always been floating around. I mean, I knew about the X card and the yellow card years ago, but now it seems to have really, truly risen up over the past year and a half, 2 years, especially with Ravenloft and the idea of safe horror and how role-playing is unsafe and that you need to have safety tools at your table. So if at any point in time in the game, somebody feels uncomfortable with the subject matter, they can throw down this infamous X card, stop basically the story because they don't feel safe and they want you to change the story to make them feel safe at the table. Even if this means the DM now has to spend 5-10 minutes completely rewriting the adventure because the player forgot to tell the DM that, oh, by the way, you were afraid of snakes. And so you can't have snakes in your game because they trigger my fear. This has been huge. And having been triggered at a role-playing game and having seen this happen, I do understand it can happen. And there's really no way to prepare for it because there's no way to address every possible issue. Triggering panic attacks, it happens, both real and, as we've recently seen, staged. So I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to me. Is it the job of the DM to make you feel safe? Is it the job of the DM to be a therapist and make a safe world for you to lollygag around in? And if the world is safe, then there's really no conflict. And if there's no conflict, then what is really the point of playing the game and exploring the evolution of the character? Now, conflict doesn't have to mean combat or walking through a pool of snakes. It just means that there's some give and take, some interaction between the character and the world that helps with the growth of the world and the growth of the character, and the character is usually defined by some form of conflict. Conflict, of course, not always meaning combat. Now, the best way I can address safety is a way my friend DM Bloodworth, link down below, addressed it very simply, and that is why the picture of the player's handbook is here. I know there is these consent forms wandering around which are utterly, asinine. I need your consent before I hurt your character, kill your character, turn your character into a turkey, expose you to something that you might be afraid of. Well, do I get a DM consent form? Are there things you might do as a player that might upset me or trigger me? I mean, murder hoboing my villagers is a huge trigger. So if I need your consent to do that something to you, then you need my consent before you murder hobo my entire village. And guess what? I'm not giving you my consent to murder hobo my entire village. Yeah, it's just sort of ridiculous. But the best thing I can offer, the best tool in regards to safety and consent and triggering, is Whatever game you're playing, if they come to your table with this, whatever, this consent list, this triggering list, the demand for safety tools, show them the basic rules of the game you're playing. In this case, I'm using the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook, but it could be superheroes, it could be space, it could be horror, it could be pirates, it could be whatever game you're playing. Show them the basic rules, the basic Player's Handbook. Have them go through and look at the art and the subject matter, and then ask them, is there anything in this book, this D&D 5th edition Player's Handbook, that you find that you're uncomfortable with, that triggers you, that bothers your sense of safety? Because you're not going to run into anything in my game that's not in this book. So if there's anything in this book you find controversial, uncomfortable, triggering, you probably shouldn't be playing in my game. In fact, you probably shouldn't be playing D&D if you find the basic Player's Handbook triggering. Because the idea of safety tools and safe at the table means that at some way, shape, or form, someone feels Dungeons & Dragons tabletop role-playing game, our amazing hobby, is unsafe. That some way it can hurt you. And this has been a part of our hobby since day one. We've had it during the Satanic Panic. We had it during Nancy Reagan. We had it during the whole Mazes and Monsters bullshit. We've had it on and on and on and on and on. Libraries banning our books, schools banning our books, people going after us because our hobby is unsafe. Well, that's bullshit. The game is safe. Nothing bad can happen to you at a person at the gaming table. The only way, shape, and form you're ever going to get actually hurt playing a role-playing game is if you step on a four-sider, or if you get a paper cut from the pages, or, somehow somebody hits you with a book, or, the chances of getting hurt playing are just the same as the chances of you getting hurt anywhere. Yes, you could step on a four-sider during a game and be hurt. You could also step on a nail while you're at work, or trip on the sidewalk while you're walking to the store. Life is gonna hurt you in one way or another, but other than that, the actual role-playing in the make-believe world of D&D, or Ravenloft, or Call of Cthulhu, or superheroes, or the Old West, or space, is safe, because it's make-believe. It's not real, and it can't hurt you. And a DM's job is not to be your therapist. We're not qualified, unless, of course, your DM is also a board-certified therapist. And even then, it's not their job during the game to be your therapist. If you want to hire the DM to be your therapist, separate from the game, because they happen to be a therapist, through serendipity, I'm sure there are DMs and players who are psychologists, fine, but during the game, it's not their job. It's not their job to make you feel safe. It's their job to let you know ahead of time, this is what's going to happen in my game, so you can say, okay, that bothers me. And I will tie this up with a story. And I don't know how true this story is, or if the person was just being an ass. But this is a story I heard from a fellow DM about how he was running a desert-based game. And they were going into the temple of a snake god, Set, being very closely associated with serpents, snakes, asps, plus it being a desert/Egyptian themed campaign, there's going to be snakes of some form or another, Indiana Jones. He tells the players before the adventure even begins, the name of the module is the Tomb of the Serpent King. He starts running the game. Again, Tomb of the Serpent King. The very first thing the players see is iconology of serpents, of Set in his serpent form, of the world serpent, snakes. They know, basically, there is a big red sign saying you are going to encounter snakes. You're going into the temple of a snake god. Here are some statues depicting snakes. There is no question that before this session is over, you will encounter a snake. So he's running the adventure, and lo and behold, they run into a giant snake, at which point the player throws down her X card and says, I'm sorry, I'm afraid of snakes. This triggers me. You need to change it. I cannot deal with the scenario where there's snakes. So the DM was forced to bring his campaign game to a halt, rewrite the entire module, and then sort of question, at what point in time were you not aware you were going to encounter snakes? I literally told you a week ago it was called the Temple of the Serpent King. I reminded you again, the name of the dungeon you're going into is the Temple of the Serpent King. The very first thing you saw walking into the dungeon an hour ago were statues and paintings of snakes. At what point in time did you not understand you were going to run into snakes? And at what point in time did you forget you were afraid of snakes, but now that your character is actually at the risk of death from this giant snake, you suddenly remember you're afraid of snakes, so I can't throw a snake at you because it triggers your fear of snakes? You had a week to tell me. And that's the innate issue with X cards and safety tools, is because a player can just bullshit to use it to rewrite the game. The DM loses all ability to tell a story because at any point in time, a player can go, no, you doing this triggers me. You can't kill my character. It triggers me. You can't turn my character into a turtle. It triggers me. You can't take my character stuff away. It triggers me. You can't have me fight spiders. It triggers me. And if players can do that and DMs can't, then it's completely unfair. Because again, this is make-believe. It is completely safe. Nothing bad is going to happen to you, Steve, because something happens to your character, Steve, during the game. And again, if there's anything in this player's handbook that you find triggering, you shouldn't be in my game. In fact, you shouldn't be playing the game. And finally, if you get safety tools, how come I, the DM, don't get safety tools? Shouldn't I get safety tools too? What if there are things that trigger me? Like, again, the idea of you killing every villager for no reason whatsoever other than they looked at you wrong, which has happened in one of my games. Well, maybe that triggers me. Maybe the idea of mass slaughter of innocents for no reason triggers me. So if you're triggered by snakes and I can't use snakes, well, then you can't kill my villagers anymore. And I'm sure I can think of some other things that trigger me that you as a player can't do anymore in my game because, it upsets me. Like fire. Fire upsets me. Fire generally upsets most people. People being on fire is sort of upsetting. You know what? You can't cast Fireball anymore in my game because the idea of you setting something on fire bothers me. I mean, it's just an endless circle of ridiculousness. At the end of the day, safety. The game is safe. The game can't hurt you. You can be hurt. You can get a paper cut. Sure. You can step on a four-sider. Sure. You can trip and fall. Sure. The ceiling could collapse and fall on you. Sure. An asteroid could hit the earth and eliminate all life. Sure. Life is not safe. But imagination, make-believe, pretty much is safe because nothing can happen to you in real life while playing make-believe. So this person that played the X card on this fellow DM, and again, I don't know if this is true or he was just bullshitting, had plenty of time to let the DM know, I'm afraid of snakes. I had a week to let the DM know she was afraid of snakes. But instead, she waited till it looked like her character was going to die before she goes, oh, I'm afraid of snakes. How much of that is bullshit? I don't know. You tell me. Do you not feel safe playing a game of Dungeons & Dragons? If you don't, maybe you should find a game you do feel safe at instead of trying to make D&D safe because it's make-believe. And the whole idea of going out and adventuring and killing monsters and taking their treasure and risking life and limb for the sake of nothing more but experience points and stuff, well, that's unsafe. Your character is going to get hurt the second they leave town because things are going to be trying to stop you. And if that's something you don't appreciate, you probably shouldn't be playing D&D. In fact, if you don't think the game is safe, you probably shouldn't be playing at all. I am your unsafe guide to all things gaming, the OGGM. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you don't appreciate this comment, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that don't, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 1,000 subs by 2024. Till next time, stay safe.